Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Next Level Humanity podcast. I have a lovely guest, dear Danielle Sax, and I have been on her podcast a couple of weeks ago. I enjoyed every moment of it, and now I invited her to my podcast. Welcome, Danielle. How are you?
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, me too. I'm very excited to hear your story. You're also an entrepreneur. And entrepreneurship, we did talk about on your podcast. Entrepreneurship takes a lot of courage and a lot of work. And because most of our listeners are entrepreneurs and founders, I think your story, your background will be very inspiring for them. So my first question would be, how did it all start? How did you start your career?
Well, I'm not born an entrepreneur, I have to say. I always say, you don't learn it at school, not in, certainly not in Belgium. And so what I can say is that I was always someone who wanted to help others. And having had trouble with my back as a youngster, as a teenager, I went to the physiotherapist, etc. And that's where I got the passion of how to help others with their physical challenges. And so I studied physiotherapy and manual therapy afterwards, and a bit of osteopathy and so many other certifications, just because I wanted to be that person who could help others. Of course, you need to know that it's a passion, it's science, but if there's one thing you don't learn, it's entrepreneurship. Any physio, any doctor, any in the medical field will tell you, you don't learn anything about entrepreneurship. And so for me, I can even say, to be honest with you, Nevşah, up until today, I have had to learn entrepreneurship outside of what I love doing. And so in my first life, as I say, a physiotherapist, I did that for about 15 years, and then my family, my husband and my 2 kids, we went to South Africa for the entrepreneurship of my husband, who was going to set up a few companies there. And so I became more again the woman in the house, keeping the kids and having a wonderful, South Africa is one of the most beautiful countries. But as maybe some of your listeners will relate, when you have it in you to help people and to make a change and to make a change in the world, to mean something to someone else, I couldn't stay that mom. So I quickly started to be, working at the embassy, doing lots of things with my husband's business. And so I started again feeling that I needed to do something with my life. And so I had there, and that is the turning point in my life, a wake-up call, because being that natural giving person, the one who wants to help other people and overgive and not taking care enough of myself, I became, in 1998, I was 37 years old, very, very ill. And that's where it all shifted, because I realized that if I want to mean something to others, I need to take care of myself. And doctors predicted that I would be in a wheelchair, never be able to walk a flight of stairs again, let alone work again. And that's where and I get goosebumps when I say it, my journey really began, because it was all about getting to know the inner world, the self-care, focusing on you instead of the outside world. And that's where it all started, and where, I'm 64 today, and it has been a beautiful journey. But when I see the business that I'm running now, and my husband is retired and he's working with me in how we help people today with their true wealth, it is such a beautiful, when I look at it, it still gives me goosebumps, and I'm not going to retire. So I'm an entrepreneur for life. So ask me any question.
I love it. Yeah, I think those turning points are amazing in life, because they are challenging at that point, but they're also a big opportunity for your future. And if we learn to see challenges as opportunities, as growth opportunities, I think that's kind of like the best way to put it. And you did grow through that. And I think now when you look back, you see that was an amazing experience.
What I found the most experienced thing, if I can interrupt, just to say that, because, you know, at 37, having a challenge is a totally different thing than having a challenge at 50 or at 64. Last year, I broke my 2 wrists, and with all the work that I have done already within myself and everything, it was a totally different challenge than at 36 losing, you know, your health, because you think differently, you have grown, you can see it from a distance, you can, you know, so I think it's very important that we all realize that growth journey makes us, I would almost say, appreciating more and more the challenge. In the beginning, when you have a challenge at 30 years old, you think that the world is collapsing. Does that make sense to anyone listening?
You learn. As we age, we learn, and that's kind of like, that's something I usually tell the entrepreneurs we support.
Yes.
I think understanding what challenges really are and the value of it is a big growth opportunity in life. And what I also usually teach and also usually talk about is that challenges happen because we are off track. So it's like challenges are kind of like signs that you are off track, and you put it very clearly, because you are an entrepreneur, you want to help people, you are here with a bigger mission. Not that, you know, being with the family and taking care of kids is not a big mission. That's also a big mission, and that's also great. But because you were not fully aligned, I think, with your calling, you had to have that experience, because, you know, there was a bigger mission, there was a bigger purpose in your life. You are here to help more people, not just your family. Of course, our families are important. Of course, taking care of the kids and home is very important. But because your purpose was, you know, have always been, as far as I understand from your story, to help more people and to reach out and to, you know, support people, because you're not on track.
Yes.
Because challenges happen when we are off track, and they are great, because they are signs telling us, hey, you're on the wrong path. Get back to your path.
Can I say that, and that's why I was saying just now about the growth, because I can only say, for example, my brand 5-7 years ago, 3 years ago even, was, first it was stress in those first years, you know, helping people shifting out of chronic stress. Then it became about living your authentic success, to tell people exactly what you're saying now. If you are not aligned, if you're not authentic with yourself, then success becomes a problem, because, you know, it doesn't go together. But then that's where the burnout and everything lies. But, and that's why I wanted to say to you, is that what I've discovered at 64 now, the last 2 years challenges have even gone deeper. It made me even in my guiding with people, in my message. And so we've gone from, because success to me is now, and that's my life, my perception, my reality, success for me is too hollow anymore. It doesn't fit with me anymore. While 5 years ago, and that's why I just wanted to say, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it fitted with me. Today, because, you know, through the cancer diagnosis and the break, you know, the fractures of the wrists and all that, one goes deeper again. And now my message is about true wealth. And I don't talk about success anymore, because the wealth is, like we talked about last time, it's health, it's well-being, it's the it's, you know, you go so much deeper. And so I feel, even in the last 2 years, and I want to ask your audience maybe to look in the mirror and say, is what I stand for 5 years ago still in my entrepreneurship what I stand for today? And I get goosebumps, because it changes. And so it takes courage, like you just mentioned in the beginning. It takes so much courage to go and look in the mirror again and again and see if your values, needs, etc., if that's still aligned with what you are doing. So I found that certainly as an entrepreneur, it is already lonely enough, it is already difficult enough sometimes to do this journey as an entrepreneur. So it's very important to be fulfilled in yourself and to be aligned with who you are, because otherwise it doesn't work. So just to say that the message and what you say, helping people with, that can change. And I'm sure it has changed for you, Nevşah. It changes. And that's why I'm saying I'm not going to retire, because this is now for the next 4, 5, 7 years. My true wealth is my message, my brand. But who knows? Maybe in 3 years' time, it may, have another deeper level. So, that's the beauty also of entrepreneurship. We can change what we want to do, and it's not a 9-to-5 job where you are stuck. No, I think it's a journey where you can evolve again and again, and that's what I like about entrepreneurship.
Yeah. And I would also like to talk about the female way of entrepreneurship. Why? Because I have worked with a lot of founders until now, and female and male. And what I've seen is male founders can focus on the target market, focus on the product, and focus on what is needed out there, and just have one goal and one target and just move towards it without even asking themselves, am I fulfilled or not? Which is okay. But female founders, that's a different story. I think this is what you're talking about is mainly the female journey, female entrepreneurship journey, because unless we are deeply fulfilled inside, and I think it's very much aligned with being a woman and having a womb and being connected with the creator, physically, mentally, emotionally. We're kind of like, if we're not fully fulfilled inside, we tend to, as you say, it's not about success. We tend to stop functioning. It's kind of like, and that's where sickness and illness and pain and bigger challenges come into the picture. It's like as women entrepreneurs, self-mastery and checking in, as you said, every couple of months maybe, on who we are and what we want deep in our truth and what we value deep in our truth, and then realign our business, because we live from our inner being and inner wisdom, reflecting it outside. But males, they're kind of like, I think they can find their way looking at the world and focusing on the world and what's going on there. And it's easier for them to find their direction just by looking at the world, because their whole energy is more outward, sexual energy, all their energy. But women, we need to look in, and we need to do that regularly, so that we don't shift from our path and we don't go off path. And what you say is really important.
And in a certain way, I do agree. But what I see in my practice in the last years is that, and that's what I think is so important to mention, that men can also show their vulnerability and their weaknesses, and I see in my practice that 10 years ago I also had more women to guide, but I see now that the men out there, and that's why I'm calling it true wealth, are realizing that the outside world is not anymore neither what is fulfilling to them. So what I mean is, there's a feminine side in every man. We know that we have a male energy inside of us as women, and there's a female energy in every man, and it is time also that, and I see it here in my practice when they are here in my chair or in Zoom or whatever, they are starting to be much more vulnerable, much more open to look inside, much more open to go and find the kingdom within. It's all that kind of shift, I think, in society, luckily, about awareness, about development, growth. And these men are more and more realizing it's not outside of me, it's also inside. And I think it takes time, to be honest. I think you are right about first they are going for the outside and the prestige and the status and the title, because that's how they've been conditioned. But I have some of them, even already from 40, 42, 45, when they realize, wait a minute, is this it now? And that's where the feminine comes in. Feminine energy asks them to go and look within and to start taking care of their inner world and being much more compassionate and vulnerable and authentic. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, if male, and although they have less feminine energy than us, and we have less male energy than them, of course we have male, they have female. Mm-hmm. And what I've been seeing is, if men are fully disconnected with themselves, with their feminine energy, with the inner world, I think they go after what I would call conditioned goals or fake goals, which is, like you said, prestige and, Yes. And then they kind of like lose track of what truly matters.
Yes.
Like men can easily lose track of what truly matters, whereas women hardly lose track of what really matters because of our spiritual depth. And when they go off track and they just invest their time and energy in things that don't really matter. Yeah. And then in the end, when they realize, I think that's also very painful. It's like when you have done it all and you're unhappy. And I started seeing more and more men like that. It's like they went outside with conditioned goals. Their minds were conditioned about success. They were conditioned about what mattered. And then they went out there without connecting them with their inner being and asking themselves what truly matters. Mm-hmm. Fully disconnected from their spiritual side. They build things and build and build and build. And then one day they reached all their goals. They have it all and they're still unhappy. And I think at that point, that's a huge problem to solve. And I see more and more men.
I see them too. And I think that's why they come to us for training and coaching and a good example, because I know anyone listening likes to recognize themselves in a story, or it's so important sometimes just to give an example. And I think I can give a good example, Nevşah.
Please.
That is, I had a client, I think he was at the time, he was about 42, 43, and he had taken over the business of his father and his uncle. And that's a typical thing, like you say about conditioning. That's where he was conditioned about what a business looks like, what the leadership of the business looks like, how they were running the business. And he was totally misaligned with himself because he wanted to prove to his dad and his uncle that he could do this, but their way. And so he totally burned out, as they say today. But I mean, there was such a misalignment. And when he came to me, he didn't have the energy anymore. He couldn't sleep well. There's a whole lot of signals there. But the main thing was he needed to start doing his own way of leadership, his own way of, instead of the conditioned one, like you say. And so we changed that self-leadership and that leadership on how he wanted to be with his, with his people, with his team. And so that whole shift of going into your own authentic leadership and the way you want to run the business, that for him, he never got recognition of his father. And the day we finished the whole journey and that he was running it on his own, that's when his father clicked and said, wow, I am proud of you. And that was the day that he didn't need it anymore. He didn't need that recognition anymore, and now he got it. So I think it's a good example to show that we all want to be seen, heard, and understood. Men even sometimes more than women. And so to be seen, heard, and understood is such a basic thing for everyone that's where I think the miracle lies, if you can start seeing yourself, appreciating yourself, and be who you really are, and then the outside world will recognize that too. So that is a little bit the story that I think can maybe some of your audience can relate to. We want to do it like other people. We want to have that recognition and prove that we are, good enough, while that's not what we need.
No. Yeah, and I'm going to also, from that, I'm going to ask you a question, because I know you have a lot of experience on that. So what I've been also seeing is people say things like, okay, but even if I wanted to do it in situations like that in the story you told, even if I did that, it doesn't go recognized. And that's kind of like, that needs some depth. I think that's something to be, we have to talk more about, because how our recognition of ourselves, our truth, gets reflected into the world. If you have a shallow communication and shallow relationship with yourself,
yes,
that doesn't get reflected, because people think, they're just after listening to us, for example, they think they're just going to say, okay, I want this, and then I'm going to change the way it is, and maybe when you say I want this is still the conditioning.
Yes.
Maybe there are deep layers of it. Maybe
whatever you want
is
already in, because let's say someone wants more money in the bank, or someone wants, let's say, a house in the south of France. I'm desperately wanting a second home somewhere so that I can escape and that I can go there, sit in the sun. It's always important to ask yourself, what is there, what do I need to feel to have it, that house in the south of France will bring to me. And the first thing I always say is, go to the feeling. What is it? What is the need behind this, the wanting? What is the need that are you craving? What are you craving? More rest, more attention, more. It's so important to get to know your own needs. Some people, it always starts with the needs. Any feeling we have, there's a need behind it. And so it's very important. That's what you call going deeper in yourself. What is your own need? It's the same with a trigger. If somebody says something and it triggers you, it's always about our inner world. And that's what I think what you're saying is that the outer world always reflects the inner world. So if you crave love, it means there's not enough love within you for yourself. Isn't that what you mean?
Yeah, and that's one thing. But also what I meant is, it's like people think they would know what they want or their values without doing deep work. So that's what. So people are like, when they listen to, for example, my videos or podcasts, and when people like us who have done some deep work,
yes,
and connected with themselves with different methods. When we talk about the importance of authenticity, being who you are,
yes,
and creating businesses around that, and aligning your business around that, and that conditioning is not aligned with ourselves and all that. People think they can just go, okay, that was my dad's way, this is my way, I'm going to do it this way, and that's it. And then they're like, yeah, but I did it, but they didn't recognize it, and they weren't proud of me. Why, Because they needed that deep work. It's like,
yes,
maybe that's another conditioning. It's like what I'm referring here is, you're like, okay, that's my dad's conditioning, I'm not going to do that, I'm going to do this without any deep work. Maybe that's another conditioning.
of course.
And it's like this needs what we're talking about here to to our listeners and anybody who's watching us on YouTube. What we're talking about here is we need deep work. If we want your business to be meaningful, that comes with deep work. And from here, I'm going to ask you, like,
That's
your
right.
experience of that
Yeah.
deep work,
Thank you.
and
Thank you
maybe
for
we
that
can talk
question.
about wealth and well.
Thank you for that question, because I still believe that the cause of all the results in our lives are our beliefs. What we believe about ourselves, what we believe about life, what we believe about love, what we believe about money, so it's all about, that's where the work is. And beliefs are in our subconscious mind. And so you can think things that you want and do that with your conscious mind, but everything that is reflected in your outside world is reflecting what is going on in your subconscious mind. So that's why you're saying, if you don't do the deeper work, which is the work in your subconscious mind about your conditioning, about your beliefs, about the traumas, that's where the deeper work lies. And so to bring the subconscious to the conscious, and then change it, and I do RTT like a hypnotherapy kind of technique, but it's so important to be able to go in the subconscious mind and see what is your reality there, what are your beliefs. From most of them happened in the first 10-12 years of your life. So if you ask me, and I don't like to call it work. I'm a bit allergic to the word work, because it should not be work. It should just be that's just going to the source for me. More and more going to what we are is pure love, unconditional love, and all the rest that is in the subconscious mind condition.
Watering the plants
is it's all limited. It's not for nothing called limiting beliefs. They limit us. They keep us in a sort of prison that we don't even know about. Even I do. I've done so much work, if you want to call it work, but I've done so much deepening and deconditioning and all that, and still, of course, I'm human. Welcome to humanity. We are conditioned by, and today, when I see my grandchildren, how they are already conditioned so much more than when we were young 50 years ago. It's such a different time now. So if you want to go talk about true wealth, for me, true wealth is indeed going in that big well and that big container, and that the subconscious mind is, and go there and clear a few things, because that makes such a difference immediately in people's life. I see the transformation here on the chair or in the Zoom. I see it's like 20 kilograms that you put away, like a backpack of 20 kilograms that goes off you. And you can do it in different ways, like you say. There's so many methodologies, the breath work, the somatic experience, this by the body, through the mind. There's so much you can do these days, but you need to do it, because that's where the shift lies.
Yeah, true, like clearance, I call it. Clearing of the subconscious and clearing of in your consciousness, and that's, I think, a very important.
It's the same.
And it's really important.
Your base and your garage, or your make room and make it limitless, and create space to breathe and space to be. It's so important. I see so many people that are living in a golden prison of limitations, and they think because they have the money and the success and I'm not against money, please know that I've been very ill, and I know you need money in life, so it's not about that at all. I have a lot of richness, but the inner richness is still the one that no one can take away from you, and is still the one that no success can give to you.
Exactly. Lovely, Danielle, lovely messages and lovely, such an experience. Thank you very much. I'm sure all of our listeners and everybody who's watching us YouTube learned a lot. Is there one last message around these topics you want to give before we end to founders and entrepreneurs?
I'm going a lot back into my speaking because before COVID, I was into speaking a lot, and I want to go back. And I just had a meeting with the bank on a talk that they want to give, and I'm gonna name the talk because it's one of my quotes. You are your best investment always. And let's end with that. And because you do amazing work, Nevşah, I do amazing work. I can say it myself, transformational work, and not to use the word work, but we do out of passion, out of mission, and you can feel that in our energy. It's not for the money, it's not for the, it's because that's, that to share that life experience as we are here and now. I just would like to say to everyone listening, you are your best investment, and don't let anyone tell you differently. As a parent, as a person, as a woman, as a man, as an entrepreneur, even more so, as a father, as a mother, you are your best investment, always. Thank you so much.
And you are important. I think that's kind of like we are like who we are. Our fulfillment is what matters, and you are also like, I'm doing everything I'm doing for the love of it, and that feels great. That's true wealth, and that's true health.
Yes,
and if we can get a couple of people to do the same, I think that's like, that might be success.
Yeah, true. Thank you so much. I mean,
thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.